So let's talk about ham radio terms. Let me reassure you, first of all, that there will be a ham radio dictionary in the resource guide to help you with this. But I think it's important to talk about ham radio terms because, like any other skill or activity, there's always some language or lexicon around that activity. And ham radio is not shy of terms or abbreviations. Let's talk about perhaps 8 or 10 important ones just to kind of pique your interest. We've already been doing that as we've moved through this DVD, but let me share one with you, and that is 73. So ham radio operators will frequently end a communication, and they even let this spill over into their email communications by saying 73. They might put a slash, their call sign, and then their name. What does 73 mean? Well, it's an abbreviation for best regards, and historically it has its origination back in the days when a lot of ham radio was done with Morse code, and rather than sending out the code for best regards, it was a common agreed upon system that if you typed 73 or 73, which you can do faster than typing out best regards, that 73 meant best regards. And I frequently use that in my emails when I'm talking with other hams. I'll say 73DE, which is French for from, and then KF7ETX/David. Now, what's another ham radio term? I introduced it early in the DVD, and that is an Elmer. An Elmer is basically a ham radio mentor that helps you move along as a new entrant into the hobby. They have a lot more skill and information, and they share that skill and information with you in a manner that allows you to develop those same skills. That's important because someday you might be an Elmer for someone, so seek out an Elmer. Realize that these folks are sharing their time and resources with you. Of course, be appreciative. Realize that they might have a common bond in sharing communications and the skills related to that. They might not share the same political views, so be graceful and thankful for their time and learn from those folks and realize someday you might be an Elmer as well. Now, we were talking about these radios and duplex and simplex, so two more terms. Remember, simplex is talking from one radio to another. Duplex is using a repeater to send communications from one radio to another and then back to another, so two-way communication. Net, what is a net? A net is an informal gathering of radio operators on a particular channel at a particular time. Usually it's a structured conversation where there will be a net controller that directs the conversation. These typically are centered around areas of shared interest. Might be swap meet, might be, well, there's one here in my area that has an interest in railroading, and there's some folks that like to share off-road activities, etc. So perhaps find out if there's a net in your area, and that's a fun way to practice skills with your newfound hobby. If there's not a net, this is a good time for you to start up a net and share that skill with your friends. Now, some other terms that are called Q signs. Probably one of the most common ones is QSO or QSO. That is a term that relates to having a communication with someone. So if I was communicating with you by radio right now, we are having a QSO. Another Q term is QSL. Now, what is a QSL? That basically goes back to the days when you would have a receipt of communication. That's what QSL is. It's a verification receipt of communication. Now, ham radio operators like to personalize their QSL with a QSL card, and it's very common to share these cards as verification of communications. I have sometimes been operating while I've been on the road, talking on the satellites. Here's another ham term for you. Those satellites are called birds. And sometimes I am in a rare grid square, another ham term, but that basically is a specific geographic location on the planet. They all have little names. Some hams like to collect those grid squares, so I will have a communication with a ham using satellite, and then he wants verification of that communication. So he'll send me a QSL card, and I'll send him back one of my QSL cards verifying that communication, and that allows him to collect that grid square. And then some folks get an award for collecting a certain number of grid squares, maybe one from each state or all in the United States. Now, my son and I have a fun activity. When we go on road trips, we will frequently share our road trip, and we will send out road trip specific QSL cards based on where we are and who we're talking to. And well, here's one of my favorite ones. Matt and I were on Route 66, and that was a road trip that we used the Route 66 photo there to document our road trip and share that with a QSL. How about the term CW? That stands for continuous wave, but that's short for using Morse code. And another, and our final term, is UTC. That's Universal Time. And ham radio operators do not work on Mountain Time, Eastern Time, or Pacific Time. They operate on UTC. I frequently tell folks, get 2 small, inexpensive digital clocks. Label one local, and that's your local time, for me, the Pacific Northwest. And then label one for UTC. Again, the iPad or iPhone is your best friend here. There are some apps that you can find out what the UTC time is for your local time. And then I like to have those digital clocks set up if I'm talking with someone where UTC or Universal Time coordination might be an important aspect of that QSL.